At each stage of evolution, through each turning point in human history, we are reshaped with a new understanding of ourself and our world. We are now upon an extraordinary new era, the age of Aquarius, and our new culture requires a new language, a new vocabulary, a new way of seeing. It is time now to embrace the life-altering perspective that we are energy beings, more than our five senses, spiritually powerful and blessed with an incredible amount of energy to heal ourselves and our world and to live in peace. Thinking in higher ways and looking to heaven, we now know that miracles are ordinary. Healing can be an overnight happening. Love and forgiveness can move mountains, and illness can be a divine opportunity to meet God in darkness. We can now view our lives through a bio-spiritual lens and to heal our bodies by examining our souls. The journey now, our job now, is to activate the presence of God in our bodies, our spiritual power, and to take it with us in our ordinary 9-to-5 world. I'm Audrey Hope. Join me on this next episode of Real Women for life-altering perspectives that can change your biochemistry. It is a great privilege to present my special guest, Myss, here to show us how to ignite the healing fire within and how to view illness and life's challenges as a doorway, an invitation to see a different face of God. Well, when you became a medical intuitive, how did it happen? Did it happen in a big flash?
No. There's no drama to it. I'm a disappointment in that area. I don't have any sort of lights around me in that area. It was the most ridiculously natural thing that could happen.
You never had any signs of it growing up?
What I had was, you see, I was seriously influenced by nuns. I was educated by nuns till I was 29. That's a long time.
Yeah.
All right. And a nunsy environment is the type of place where miracles are ordinary. Mystics walk the halls, okay? Conversations about angels are not a, ooh, do you think they exist? But, by the way, I had a sense of my angel tonight and the guidance I received. And nobody sits there and says, have you been drinking? Have you been taking drugs? The assumption of the heavenly energy is there.
How about your family?
Oh, totally.
Mom and dad, too?
Totally. My mother said to me, when I was 15, to be honest with you, Audrey, I did have one experience that kind of made me think that there is something unusual going on here. And that was the first time I had a hit on somebody's health. And I said to my mother, this person is going to be dead in 6 weeks. And I was 15 years old. And my mother said there's nothing wrong with him. And 6 weeks later, he had committed suicide. I had a conversation with my mother a few days after that, and I wasn't upset in the hysterical sense. I was upset in the sense that I realized I'm not going to have an ordinary life. I know it, but I wasn't sure what that meant. And so she said, you know, you have some kind of extraordinary skill, and you have to take care of it, because someday God's going to tell you what you're supposed to do with it. Audrey, right after that, it went to sleep. It went to sleep. And I don't know if you ever saw that movie, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Yes.
Did you ever see that?
Yes.
Well, you know, after Rex Harrison says to her, I have to leave you because this can't go on forever, right? So she lives in this world of, did it happen or didn't it?
I see.
That's how I was until I was 29 years old, and boom, it woke up as if, you know, I was beginning my work as a publisher. I was armed now with advanced study in mysticism and schizophrenia. I'd earned my graduate degree in that area. I was well grounded in classic mysticism. So then, you know, when I began to realize that you're losing power, and what happened was my capacity to think about why simply matured. That's my best way of putting it. And as a matter of fact, I've never expressed it that way until this moment.
Can I learn how to do this?
Sure.
How? I mean, before you start to do it, do you put yourself, do you do anything special? You could sort of like do that on me right now, just if you want. Not that you could.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an undramatic, you know what it is? It's a different level of perception. Like what I'd say to you is, it's a maturation of thought, Audrey. It's as simple as that, combined with healthy self-esteem in this area.
Yeah, you talk about spiritual
Yeah,
self-esteem.
yeah,
What do you mean?
yeah.
And does one need honesty and integrity
You need
to be
honor.
intuitive?
No, but you certainly need it to, I mean, there's two levels in intuition. Everybody's born with survival intuition. Everybody. You don't have to have 1 ounce of honor to walk down the street and say there's nothing safe on this street. That's not a matter of honor, okay? But when you begin to when you start asking deeper questions, like, I wonder what my life's purpose is, which is a very different question than what should I do for a living, all right? Then you need to be receptive on a much more honorable level, okay? So suddenly integrity has to play a really strong part in your life, as does your, because you are asking to receive a much more significant level of power. Now I need to say here that I feel like I have to clear my good name here and say I do not, under any circumstances, want to present myself as someone who's mastered all of these, because I'll get so embarrassed I'll run off your set.
Yes, thank God.
Okay?
Thank God.
Because I have not, and I struggle at this every day, and it's incredibly easy for me to slip on the honor soap, okay?
Yes, yes.
So what I'm presenting is what I know to be true, not what I have accomplished.
Yes.
Can we have that understanding?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
I know that you were once ill while you were teaching. I mean, you had chronic fatigue, you had sleeping problems, you were smoking, and
Yeah.
you
Oh, I
thought,
miss those days.
I read that you thought everyone would heal except me.
Right, right,
Which
oh, sure.
is a very common thing. How did you get past that?
Well, that was a very interesting time in my life. I mean, I really went through this sort of one episode after another, after another, after another. And I finally gave up the desire to define healed according to what I think it was. Okay? I gave up my personal agenda. I thought, well, if I have to live with this the rest of my life, then I have to. And so just then I shifted gears and I said, then just teach me how. You know, I obviously have to give up my agenda, or this is going to stay on and on and on. And if it does continue on and on,
Yes.
then my journey is to figure out, how do I live with this?
Yes.
All right, how do I do this and not see beauty? How do I do this and not miss the fact that there are still beautiful things in life that I can appreciate or love, or what is, you know, you just can't afford to stay in your negativity, but it's so easy to do that.
Yes, it is.
I mean, that's when I talk to students now, and I'll say to them, I'm not telling you about a place I haven't lived half my life,
Yes.
because I have. And I can still go back there in the blink of an eye. So that we have to continually realize that we're never healed with an ED at the end of it. We have to live in the reality that we're going to have challenges every day, and every one of those can knock us to the ground.
Will we be happy if we take a spiritual path?
Well, I think, realistically, from my point of view, it's the only path that brings any contentment, because it's the only path that is irrational enough to support you through life. The spiritual path is fully irrational. That's why it fits so well in the physical world, because that's fully irrational. And if you choose a rational path, you may as well go out drinking the rest of your life, because you'll never solve anything.
Right, but we go through this period of spiritual madness, which
Yeah.
you talk about. The dark night of the soul, and that's a hard thing to get through.
Well, it most certainly is. It's also a hard thing to really identify. You know, what I tell students all the time is that we've started to pursue questions that prior to this time, prior to the last 30 or 40 years, have been restricted to monasteries. I mean, people did not really, except for rare exceptions like the great thinkers like Byron or Dostoevsky or whatever, or great artists or musicians or many other people. But let's just put it this way. The mainstream of society was not sitting around wondering for what cosmic purpose had they incarnated on this planet. That was not a normal question, okay? And when you begin to pursue that kind of question, it's not a question, it's an invocation. It's a big, huge difference there.
Yes.
And when you invite that kind of response in, what you are actually saying to the heavens is, you now have permission to change my life in any which way that needs to be changed in order for me to understand the answer to the question I've just asked, okay? So for one thing, it's an incredibly powerful question, and number two, you're going to be tremendously frightened by the answer. Okay?
Yes.
So between the time you ask the question, which is usually motivated by the fact that a job or a relationship hasn't worked out, to the time of your getting to the point, the end of the tunnel, you are going to walk into it feeling that you have walked into something that's a logical, rational experience, and you have not. All right? But the thing I want to add at this point is that our culture lacks the support system to help people through a dark night, should they really have a dark night.
Yes.
Right? Now, there's two types of dark night. We have to really talk about that. There's the psychological, emotional one,
Yes.
which is sort of what people have, and then there's the real one, the spiritual,
The suicidal one.
the spiritual dark night of the soul, the one that John of the Cross was referring
Yes.
to in 1648 when he wrote The Dark Night of the Cross. People like this. One woman said to me, ever since my relationship broke up, I've been in a dark night. And I said, well, and she started to describe her loneliness and her upset and her this and that. And then I said, tell me something. I said, if the man of your dreams walked through that door right now, would you and found you to be the woman of his dreams, would you still be in a dark night? And she said, oh no, that's not a dark night, Audrey. All right, let's be real clear here.
Right.
That is not a dark night. That's a bad day at the personal ads center, okay? Right. But, you know, the genuine dark night is a spiritual crisis. And the challenge here is we don't have people who are skilled at helping people in spiritual crisis. A spiritual crisis is not an illness. It's a process. And it should not be treated by a therapist who, one, is not skilled in spiritual direction,
Right.
and two, tells someone to go backwards into their childhood and find deep, dark, sad memories that can explain why they're in this condition.
Well, you say therapy is just trying to reconcile your family. We spend years trying to reconcile. We're born in that particular one,
Yeah.
which is fascinating.
Yeah. And I mean, there comes a point at which you have to say, all right, all right, all right, that was my family. Now get going.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I get, at some point, I think we have to recognize I'm wasting my beautiful present life on mourning a life that's, quite frankly, dead. I want to say to some people, so what if your mother told you you were never going to be good enough? So what? Get a backbone instead of a wishbone. I'm tired of this crying over what you should have had. You're wasting the power you could have.
Yes.
And you know, I guess my supportive years are now being directed toward the celebration of the strength we can have instead of the mourning of the weakness.
A new thing.
Yeah, yeah. And and so when I think of how people can heal, they've really got to get their attention out of getting up every morning, investing the full of their energy and attention into one more day of mourning my childhood. What do you call that? I mean,
Right.
There comes a point when you say another day, right? I quite frankly have told my students that if you really want to study with me on a serious basis, I want mature students. I don't want complainers anymore. I want people who can conduct themselves in exactly that way and know what it is to not criticize their fellow students, who can contain themselves or at least practice non-judgment. I list a whole lot, a lot of things because we're all inadequate at them, mostly their teacher. But at least we are consciously moving toward a goal where we can admit consciously that we don't want to move toward that goal, but we have to. The time we've run out of time. That's number one. And number
Have we run
two,
out of time? We've run out of time. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I didn't mean it that
No,
way.
we have.
Oh, we
They're
just
giving
have,
you
by
this-
the way. Oh, well, that's too bad.
Oh,
Oh, that's
I'm
too
so
bad.
sorry because there's
Isn't
just
that
so many
funny?
more things I wanted to ask you.